The National Advocates for Pregnant Women have released a report that looks at the number of women who have been prosecuted as a result of being pregnant. Now, that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but this is a story that I've been trying to draw attention to for quite a while now. And basically what happens is if a woman is considering an abortion or has had an abortion or has given birth to a stillborn, in some of the most conservative parts of the country, prosecutors will go after them, okay? And they will do so by considering it, murdering a child, okay? They will consider it murdering a child. So just to give you guys a few numbers, the National Advocates for Pregnant Women identified 413 criminal and civil cases across 44 states involving the arrests, detentions, and equivalent deprivations of pregnant women's liberty between 1973 and 2005, so after Roe v. Wade. And also they're aware of a further 250 cases since 2005.
So now, that's a lot of years, of course, but 413 cases is a lot. And you might think, like, well, I didn't hear a lot about those. Well, there's a couple of different things that are going on. Number one, if you're powerful and something happens to you, everybody hears about it, right? If you're a politician or you're a top banker, et cetera. If you're powerless, you're a young woman in the middle of Mississippi and somebody does this to you, oftentimes nobody hears about it. And also remember that for a long period of that time, there wasn't even an internet. So now when you hear a small case in Mississippi, well, you might hear it on a program like this because it gets amplified, right? But back in the day, a local paper in Arkansas would write it up, or Utah or Idaho or wherever it might be, and it'd be done. And so these people have been trying to take away the freedom of folks who didn't agree with them, even though they had the law on their side. They've been doing it all along. It reminds me of what Martin Luther King used to say about civil disobedience. He said, you have to remember, we're actually not breaking the law. The law is on our side. The local sheriffs, etc., are the ones breaking federal law.
Right.
Right? So, and in this case, Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. But nonetheless, in many of these local areas, they will pass laws where they say, well, we don't really care. We're going to call it a child and we're going to put you in prison anyway.
Right, and they consider it feticide laws. And just to give you guys specific examples that were noted in this report, let's go to graphic 11, Jesus. Maria Guerra of Memphis, Tennessee was charged with child endangerment and driving under the influence after she was found to be 4 months pregnant, even though her blood alcohol level was under the legal limit. So she was prosecuted for that. Should you be drinking while you're pregnant? No, but do you prosecute women if they happen to have a glass of wine or something while they're pregnant? It's the most ridiculous thing imaginable. In Oklahoma this month, Jamie Lynn Russell, 33, died in agony from a ruptured ectopic pregnancy in jail. Police who were called to the hospital where Russell sought help for severe abdominal pain charged her with drug possession after finding 2 prescription pills that did not belong to her. So for instance, if you are in Mississippi, and this has happened to a woman by the name of Rennie Gibbs, and you give birth to a stillborn, prosecutors can just pour through your history to figure out whether or not you've ever done drug use. And if they can prove that you've done drugs, they can literally prosecute you for murder. Rennie Gibbs was facing a life sentence in prison because she gave birth to a stillborn.
That girl that you talked about in Oklahoma, she died in prison because the cops took her from the hospital to the prison, even though she was in tremendous pain, even though she was pregnant. For what? Because of 2 prescription pills? So who actually is guilty of the murder of the kid? If you think it's a kid inside of her, by bringing her into the jail where she wound up dying, who's responsible? You're the one responsible. Shouldn't we put away the cops? Right? But no, of course they don't do that. This is about the powerful crushing the powerless. And in this case, they use the excuse of, oh, we think it's a human being and we're going to judge every single part of your life. So then, okay, now there's a new onus apparently on women that if you dare get pregnant, by the way, voluntarily, or these Republicans would say, we don't care if it's involuntarily, when you had it coming, right? Either case, then we get to micromanage your entire life, and if we think you did anything wrong during a pregnancy, we're going to come after you.
Yeah, I think that it sets a terrible precedent. And keep in mind that this is not considering the fact that Republicans are trying to pass personhood laws in various parts of the country. If you start considering a zygote or a fetus a separate person, Okay, what happens if you're, let's say, 3 months pregnant and you don't realize it yet? That's happened. There have been numerous cases where women are a couple months pregnant and they're still bleeding. They're still getting what they think is a period. And then they'll find out, oh my God, I'm actually pregnant. What if you're 3 months pregnant, but you don't realize it? And let's say you go out and you party and you drink and you have some sort of miscarriage as a result of that.
You think they won't come after you? They'll come after you. They have in the past. And by the way, if you really believe life begins at conception, Mitt Romney's Bain Capital bought a company that was in the business of destroying petri dishes full of specimens after they had joined, the egg and the sperm had joined after conception. Now, look, of course, in the real world, you have to put that in the uterus for it to grow and for it to become a human being 9 months later, right? But according to these guys, well, that would be murder. So why isn't Mitt Romney in jail? Why do they only choose to go after poor, powerless women, but never after the rich and powerful that do it on a much larger scale?
And to that point, the report does make sure to note that the majority of women that are targeted in these prosecutions are poor and they're minorities.